Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to Bristol in Gloucestershire in England, in the very kind of southwestern part of the country, and this is a brewery who I've heard some very good things about, so this is going to be my very first review from them. So for this one we're going to have a taste of a beer from the Lost and Grounded Brewers, and this one is called Cool Bananas. So this one's a New Zealand hopped Weiss beer and it comes in at 5.6%. I think it's quite a new beer because it wasn't really rated on Rate Beer. It had 3 and 3.8 I think it was on Untappd as well, so it should be pretty nice. This brewery, from what I gather, have a very good reputation. They specialise in German style and Belgian style beers rather than going for IPAs and all of this kind of thing, so hopefully it should be a really nice beer. I love New Zealand hops. If you've seen the channel before you'll know that I love New Zealand IPAs and things like this, so really looking forward to this one. As I say, it's a brewery that's got a good reputation, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. It is always cool to try beers from Bristol as well, because they always do tend to be pretty bloody good, so yeah, we'll see how we get on with this one. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Lost and Grounded. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, of course. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Lost and Grounded then. So Lost and Grounded, as I mentioned to you, are based in Bristol, and they were founded by Alex Troncaso and Annie Clements back in 2015, both of whom are pretty much Australian, if you like, having lived there for a long time. I think Annie is actually native Australian, if there is such a thing. But Alex was apparently born in Guatemala to a Chilean father and an American mother, and he moved to Australia when he was 22, meeting Annie when he was in Tasmania. But they travelled a lot together to numerous different countries, and they found a passion in beer and then began homebrewing. And apparently Annie beat Alex in quite a few different homebrewing competitions, so there's a little bit of a rivalry in there. But Alex, though, graduated as a chemical engineer and then gained his brewing diploma, and after a few months working at Stockade in Melbourne making cream liquor, which he said was a really boring job, Little Creatures out in Perth offered him a job, and he and Annie moved across the country to there. But he worked there from 2004 to 2012, and he left when Kieran actually took over the full ownership of the brewery. But they decided then to move to London, and then Alex had a stint at Camden Town Brewing when they were just starting up, but soon he decided that he had the kind of desire, he really wanted to go and start up his own company. And then one day he and Annie visited Bristol. They had been considering moving to Liverpool to start up their brewery, but they looked at Bristol and just thought it felt a little bit like Australia and decided to set up shop there. So they're now based in a 13,000 square foot warehouse, and they're focusing on producing German and Belgian style beers. The brewing team currently consists of Mark Moraz Delaunier, who was ex-Mad Hatter. There's also Mikey Harvey, who was ex-Hop and Berry, and they've got Matt Thompson as well, who was with Kelp Beers over in Wales. So their brew kit is a 25 hectolitre Cronus system as well from Germany. The artwork that you'll see on the beers is designed by Alexia Tucker, and then the labels are kind of finished off by Sam Davies, who is the graphic designer. The name Lost and Ground that they've used for the brewery apparently comes from the fact that they always kind of want to be exploring a little bit, and they also kind of felt that the grounded was important because they say that it's basically the idea is they want to kind of bring beer back to the people because they're the ones who support the company and things like this, and they are very conscious apparently to use the words to use Lost and Grounded Brewers rather than like Lost and Ground Brewery, because they say that the brewers are the ones who really kind of create all these things. The brewery, they say, is just a shed really, and I do like that kind of output. It's always kind of I think it's the kind of collective mindset that goes into this company that does make it quite interesting, and they do say that at some point in the future they want to offer their employees a sort of share scheme so they can own part of the brewery. So a really cool system that they've got there. They seem like a really interesting brewery, and of course there is a really good brewing pedigree in there with the experience of Alex from Little Creatures and also from Camden Town as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to trying this beer, and I'm sure it will be a pretty interesting one. So just to tell you the stats of this beer, this one apparently uses over 50% wheat malt in its malt base. There'll probably be some Pilsner malt or some pale malt in there as well, depending on how you actually want to make the Weiss beer. That's normally what you do. The hops in this one are all from New Zealand, as you would guess, so it's Waiiti, Pacifica and Motueka that's in this one. It comes in at 5.6% ABV and it should be really nice. There's a lot of these kind of Weizen beers using the New World hops these days that turn out to be really good, so hopefully this is one of them. So yeah, just a little quick look at the artwork for you there. I do like the way that this comes across, but this one I think is one of their kind of more experimental beers. I think it seems to be very, very new actually, but nicely presented this one. Plain bottle cap on this, incidentally. It would actually be cool if they put this little lost and grounded symbol on it there, but these guys are based on Whitby Road, as it tells you on the side here, and it just gives you a few instructions for actually drinking this beer. But yeah, nicely presented one, so without further ado, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Nice little bit of smoky opening there. Sugar it up a wee bit and we'll get it out and into the glass. Can't actually think what the last Weizen beer was. Oh, it was the Tuchebräu. It was a German Weizen that I reviewed for you last time, and that was really quite an interesting. It was a nice easy drinker this, but I do love these kind of craft beer takes on the Hefeweizens. You can get some lovely hoppy qualities added into that nice smooth malt base. But as you can see, and as you would kind of expect when it comes to a Weizen or a Weiss beer, whatever you want to call it, it's poured a nice kind of quite hazy golden yellow. This one's a little bit clearer actually than you might expect from a German brewed Weizen. If I hold it up to the light, it does have a little bit of clarity. I'm not sure how well you can see that on the camera if I put my fingers behind it, but it is quite opaque, not quite as hazy as you'd expect from the German ones. But if it tastes nice, then who cares? That doesn't really matter particularly much. So there's a solid finger of a frothy head on this one. I would say it's pretty perfect white. It's not even creamy or anything like that. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there. If you sugar the beer around a little bit, you can really smell some of that lovely wheaty and bready quality that you'd expect from this beer. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Oh. Well, one thing I would say about this beer, the hops aren't quite as prominent as I was expecting. You can get a little bit of them, but the malt base is really prominent, to be honest with you. So yeah, you've got a nice bit of that banana quality in there, a little bit of the bubble gum too, but the wheaty kind of bready notes dominate as you'd expect. It's almost got a nice little bit of a kind of creamy note to it. There's a wee bit of a kind of clovey spice as well. A little bit of grassy and floral character, mainly grassy more than anything. But you can get a wee bit of a fruity note out of it, not too much though. There's a bit of, you can pick up the juicy oranges, that's the Pacifica. And there's a wee bit, you can pick up some lime as well, that's I think the Motueka that will give you that, although I think the Waiiti can give you a little bit of lime, although it's more of a kind of peachy apricot-y sort of thing. There's definitely a bit of that apricot in there as well, which will be the Waiiti. But in my experience, Waiiti normally gives you a bit of a sharper peach. But I'd say the fruity notes in this one, it's oranges, apricots and limes, and it's a bit of each hop coming out actually, but it'll probably come out a little bit more in the flavour. These New Zealand hops have got really big alpha acid ratings on them, so you know, you're talking like 12, 13, 14%, so you'll definitely pick up a little bit more in the flavour, I think, than you're getting out of the aroma. But it really, in terms of a Hefeweizen, it does lean a little bit more towards the malt base in terms of its aroma than the hoppy side of things. You can pick up a little bit of that in there, but it's this lovely big kind of wheaty, creamy note that's coming out of this one quite prominently, I'd say. So without further ado then, let's have a go at this beer. So this is the Cool Bananas, a New Zealand hop Weizen beer, or Weiss beer, however you want to describe it, at 5.6% from Lost and Grounded Brewers in Bristol in Gloucestershire in England. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, I have to say, that is pretty nice. I have to say, really, really nice beer. It does come across, it's got a nice bit of hoppy, juicy quality on the back of it, which is interesting. It does lean more towards the malty side of things, I would say. It's not going to blow your head off in terms of IBUs. I was expecting it to be a little bit more bitter than it is. Although, in fairness, what I would say is that the bitterness does ramp up a little bit once your mouth adjusts to it. But when you think that these guys are brewing Belgian and German style beers, the Germans, in my experience, they don't tend to, they're not so into, the traditional German beer drinkers aren't so into huge bitternesses and things like that. They do like, and I have encountered brewers over in Germany, even like in brauhouses, who like to use New Zealand hops and things. So this one, it does have that almost brauhaus type feel to it. It's got that nice kind of smoothness, and that's one thing I really always missed about Germany when I lived over there. I loved going and drinking the Helles and the Dunkels and the Weiss beers and just having that lovely smooth quality, and this beer really does reflect that. But when they're saying it's a kind of New Zealand hopped Weiss beer, I kind of expected it more to be a sort of New World take on the style, if you like. But you do get the flavours from those New Zealand hops, but not quite the bitterness that you might expect. But I mean, it's a good beer. You can't, you know, it's everyone's interpretation. This one, to me, it's got the New Zealand hop flavours to it, but it's definitely not got the bitterness that you might expect when it says New Zealand hop style bitterness. Just be aware of that when you try this one. It maybe is a little bit more bitter than the German Weizens that you'd come across, but not overly, I would say. It's a nicely well balanced beer. This one's definitely more about how the flavours go together rather than anything else, and I do like that. It has that lovely kind of traditional German quality to it, but then it's got a little bit of that New World flavour to it. It just, everything goes together really quite nicely with this one. So a big thumbs up to Lost and Grounded on that. I'd love to try their Keller pills and running with and some of the other beers that they've got, because they did have a few interesting ones there when I was checking out their website. They've got a core range of about 8 or 9 different beers, incidentally. So hopefully I can review a few of those for you in the future. I was quite lucky, I believe, to get a hold of this one through Market Wines in Durham, because I've not seen this brewery up here all that much, so hopefully I can get a few more of their beers and review them for you later. But this is nice. So yeah, malt base on this one, you can feel that. There's a little bit of the pale malt kind of blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, you get the nice kind of thicker, wheaty, bready qualities. There's a little bit of a kind of banana-y flavour to this one, which is really nice. You can definitely feel that in this beer. There's a little bit of clovey spice. As you go further and further into the aftertaste of this one, you can feel a little bit of the clovey spice in the middle of your palate. There's almost a little bit of a slightly biscuity note coming out of this one as well, which is quite interesting. But the hoppy side of things also has a little bit of complexity. So in the back corners of the palate, you can feel there's a teeny bit of earthiness, but as you come further forward along the tongue, along the sides of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit of a slightly spicy floral aromatic note. Then round the very front curve of your palate, you've got a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy feel to the beer as well, which is nice. And yeah, the fruity side of this beer is quite interesting. I think you're getting a little bit more. You're getting a little bit more of the fruity quality out of this one in the aftertaste. So I think there's that little oily bubble that you always have where these fruity notes come out of the beer. There's a little bit of the orange quality in there. It does. I always find that with the Pacifica, when it comes to that hop, it tends to be a little bit lighter than the Amarillo. The Amarillo is the classic American one when it comes to orange, and it's quite a big oily orange. The Pacifica, I always find, is just a little bit lighter. And it has a bit of that. The apricot-y notes are in there as well from the YET, and then as you progress further and further into it, you get a little bit of that kind of lemon limey quality that you expect of the Motueka, which is kind of interesting. But I would say, in the beginning, you can pick up a little bit of the limey flavour from the Motueka as well. I do like that. The lime comes in at the start and then it smooths out. You get a little bit more of the orange. Some of the apricot-y flavours are kind of sitting there as well. And as you progress further on, the apricot sits there, but then the lime starts to push its way out again, and maybe a little bit of the orange. I think the orange is kind of forming the base of this beer on the front part of your tongue. The peaches, the apricots, sorry, are just sitting a little bit on top, and then the lime starts to push its way out again at the end of it. So it's a really kind of interesting fruit combination you've got with this one, but that's the wonderful thing about these New Zealand hops. But as I say, the thing that strikes me about this beer is how they've maintained that nice kind of German smoothness, and they've managed to get these sort of New Zealand hop flavours into it without kind of going wild on the bitterness. I think this is a Weiss beer that the Germans would really like to drink. So I think with this one, it's the best way to describe this one, or to summarise it, is it's a Weiss beer that has the Brauhaus feel to it, but it's got some of the New World flavours, but not quite the bitterness that you might expect when the label suggests it's a New Zealand hopped Weiss beer. You would maybe expect it to be a little bit heavier in terms of IBUs in this one, but the fact is, it's a good beer, and you can't really ask for much more than that. So thumbs up to to Lost and Grounded Brewers on this one. They've done a good job with it. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say mid-bodied, carbonation's quite smooth. It is actually a little bit oily in its mouthfeel, this one. It's not quite got it's got a little bit of oily and wet quality, which in terms of the mouthfeel is a little bit off from what you would expect from the German ones, but the fact is it's a good beer. The mouthfeel for me isn't the most important part of the beer, I would say. There's a little bit of hoppy bitterness to this one. As I say, it's a little bit hoppier than the German Brauhaus Weiss beers, but not overly hoppy, I would say. The malt base is quite smooth. It almost has a little bit of a sweetness to it as well, and you've got some nice juicy fruity qualities in it as well. The fruity notes in this beer are really quite interesting, but overall it's one that definitely has kept me interested in this brewery, and I'll be trying to have a go at some of the other ones as well. Hopefully I can review the Keller Pils at some point, because I've heard that's a really quite nice beer, so hopefully I can review more of these beers for you in the future. But it's been really cool to try this one from them as my first one, so I'm definitely interested in trying more of them later on. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Lost and Grounded. Do let me know some of the other breweries and things that I should check out from Bristol. I know there's Wiper and True, Bristol Beer Factory, Lost and Grounded, Moor Beer, of course, or another one there. There's a few other ones as well. Wiper, I think I've said Wiper and True, but there's quite a few good breweries down there these days, so I need to keep up to date with what's going on in Bristol. But a really nice Weiss beer, this one, and I do recommend that you have a go at it. So this was the Cool Bananas from Lost and Grounded in Bristol in Gloucestershire in England. A really quite interesting beer. Lovely German Weissbier Brauhaus feel to it, with a little bit of that New World flavour. That's a good way to summarise it. Until the next time, it's Landry just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. Prost.